Today is the 28th May 2026. I'm doing another practice of how it feels to talk about a specific topic. This time I want to try to talk a little bit more about a more personal topic. I'm staying again with my starting theme, just of emotions. I want to talk about the feeling of detachment. I assume one can feel detached from quite a lot of things in very different ways. For me, when I talk about detachment, I'm talking about a feeling where I feel detached from my own emotions, from probably even the world in a way, but where I just feel emotionally kind of numb and on distance to even my own senses and my own feelings, and I feel just as if everything on my emotional side is like isolated, and every emotional feeling that I have is tuned down and a lot more foggy in a way of a feeling. A lot of times this feeling of attachment comes with kind of an inability to feel positive emotions. Like I'm a lot more detached from positive emotions than from negative. But even from negative emotions in that state, I'm very much detached and not feeling them as much. A lot of times, detachment for me can be difficult to get aware of early on. Like a lot of time, it takes me at least a few hours in that state that I actually get aware of. Okay, I'm again feeling detached, and I have to behave a little bit different, and I have to prioritize that feeling and then handling it. And it's because it's not a very immediate feeling, because it's not something that kind of easily announces itself in a way, but just very present. I have this feeling, but again, it's more a feeling of detachment. It's more a feeling of less feeling in a way, and so on some days, or I would say at least too often, I find that I am not quickly aware enough that I'm in that state, and I have the feeling of detachment quite regularly. Like it's not always, but often enough. It's kind of on a weekly basis where I have that kind of every few days. It's something, and sometimes it's like I don't have it for a week. Sometimes it's like 10 days or something that I have it again. But more often than not, it's kind of every 4, 5, 6 days. So it's like kind of once a week. I kind of expect to be in that state at least a little bit. Like the strength, there's a variety in the strength, there's a variety in when it comes, but in general, for me, it comes kind of weekly, or at least like between 5 to 10 days, I get into that state. How strong that state then also is again very different, and especially when it's a very light kind of detachment, it's difficult for me to get again to keep track of it, to notice, okay, I'm now in this state, and now I have to be careful, and I have to prioritize more self-care and more connection to my world and to myself, and taking things easier and taking things slower, because it's very easy in the state of detachment for me to overlook any kind of negative emotions, because even they are very tuned down, and I'm very detached as the wording I'm from them. So that is it's always an issue if I'm not aware that I'm in the state, and I behave normally and act just like I would on a normal day. The feeling of detachment, especially when I'm not aware of it, can really mess myself up, because I can really pull myself down and even hurt myself in that state, because I'm just not as much aware of my emotions in that state, because they're just not as feelable and observable as when I'm normally. and that causes a lot of issues for me if I'm not aware of my emotions. If I do something that feels bad and I can't feel that, that's a very big issue in general. Like, even without any context, that is just a very big issue, not being able to feel when something is not good for me. And in these days, that's just it's very difficult to be aware. Another thing that this state very much brings is kind of a restlessness. I very much kind of crave in that state to feel something, to do something. I always feel like I want to do something, but at the same time, there's nothing that I can do that makes it very much better. Like, in the sense, like in these states, I feel like I want to do everything, but nothing can like satisfy me in any way. Where I have this like push and pull where I kind of want to do nothing, but I absolutely want to do something. That's often a part of this state, especially later on. It's not so much like at the beginning. It's more so a little bit deeper and a little bit longer in that state. My phases of detachment and these feelings, they a lot of times take at least some hours. They're not a full day normally there, so they're most of the time they're a little bit better in the morning and in the evening. And they can stay over a few days. Like, normally I would say I have it like one day with like maybe on the second day a little bit of kind of a fade off a little bit, where I just have to be very present, that I might not be aware of my emotions and of impacts that something has on my life and on me right now, and have to put a lot of prioritization on that on like a second day. But most of the time it's mainly one day. If it's bad in the last years, it's maybe like 3 days. Very rarely is it more than 4 days. And again, it's not the whole days. It's more like, I don't know, 6-8 hours a day or something like that. A lot of times it's a little bit better in the evening and a little bit better in the morning. And yeah, so that's kind of the feeling of detachment, these detachment phases that I have. I have them very regularly. Yeah. So talking about this on camera, that's the first time that I really said something actually very personal in a way. And I feel a little bit the weight of the consequences of saying this. A lot more than on other talks. But I would say it's also very much okay right now talking about this. I mean, also I'm very much aware this is not a video that a lot of people will see. Of course, it's accessible, but also not very many people will see this, if even anyone. So that potentially might reduce the negative feeling that I would have sharing something like that. But it's also a very I mean, you can see it in the way I pause, how it slows me down in talking about it, in how it slows me down in thinking about what to say. Of course, another aspect of why it's a little bit more difficult than maybe other aspects is I don't have a lot of things planned for it, and especially with thinking while I'm talking about it. Okay, what do I want to share? What do I not want to share? That's something that ideally I would like to think about before when I like plan a video. Which this is not a planned video. Just pick the topic I want to talk about, my emotions of detachment, and nothing else. Like, no point to make, or no start, no middle part, no end, no line, no guidelines for me in a way for my talk. So I'm not really sure where to take talking about it. But it's also very much okay. I mean, that's point of the practice. It's not about any kind of guidelines. I just think not having such a guideline, not having a plan or idea from where to where I want to bring such a talk makes it a little bit more difficult for me to talk about it, and makes it a little bit more difficult also when I think about, okay, or when I'm aware, thinking about it while talking about it, about the consequence that people might watch this. How much do I want to share of it? How much do I not? Ideally, that's not something that I want to decide or even think about in the video. Ideally, those are things that are planned, but it's good to kind of get this impression doing this live, feeling like if I planned it before, even just what they want to share, what they not want to share, plan it out so my mind can be a little bit freed and give it a little bit more structure, then it might be a lot less slow and with a lot less of these pauses and repetitions and just talking styles that probably makes this very awkward to watch and very difficult to follow, because there's not a lot to follow. But time is over. In general, the talk felt good, except of, again, the points that I just talked about. So progress. Then until the next practice.